The last couple of months we've been fighting a war against coronavirus, and it hasn't been getting better. Medications, treatments and possible solutions are continuously getting tested, but nothing has been found so far. That isn't to say that scientists aren't hard at work to find anything that could possibly work against the coronavirus. And that also doesn't mean that we haven't found anything that works yet. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because recently a new scientific article has been posted about the possibility for vitamin D to protect against the COVID-19 virus. So what I want to do today is to dig into the article, find what possible solutions vitamin D can provide and how it works in the human body. And this is that article, the role of vitamin D in the prevention of coronavirus disease 2019 infection and mortality. Let's first read the abstract and then discuss what's actually in the paper and how it all functions. The WHO declared SARS-CoV-2 a global pandemic. The present aim was to propose an hypothesis that there is potential association between mean levels of vitamin D in various countries with cases and mortality caused by COVID-19. The mean levels of vitamin D for 20 European countries and morbidity and mortality caused by COVID-19 were acquired. Negative correlations between mean levels of vitamin D in each country and number of COVID-19 cases per 1 million people were observed. Vitamin D levels are severely low in the aging population, especially in Spain, Italy and Switzerland. Which is remarkable because if you remember at the start of the pandemic, these were the most hit parts of the populations in the entire world. The article therefore raised the questions if there may be a correlation between vitamin D consumption and the levels of COVID-19 morbidity in the entire world. And that's what we're going to discuss in this article. In the background they discussed that previous viruses had a connection with low levels of vitamin D in the human body. As stated here, previous observational studies report independent associations between low serum concentration of vitamin D and susceptibility to acute respiratory tract infections. They do of course note, however, that every virus works differently in the human body and that even testing in the lab may not result in the same results. And that the data on COVID-19 so far has been scarce, but it definitely deserves more research. And as they state, the primary aim of this study is to assess if there are any associations between mean levels of vitamin D in various countries and the mortality caused by COVID-19. The secondary aim was to identify if there is any association between mean level vitamin D levels in various countries and the number of cases of COVID-19. And of course, it's important to notice that correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation, but they do hypothesize that vitamin D supplementation may attribute to the prevention of COVID-19. This is however an observational study and they look at other countries and their data to make a decision on if there's a correlation or not. But they don't explain how vitamin D may prevent COVID-19, so for that we look at another paper. This 2018 paper, The Immunological Implication of New Vitamin D Metabolism, discusses everything how vitamin D may protect against viruses. And in the beginning of the paper they discuss what vitamin D actually is, and they refer to vitamin D as two compounds, vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. They discuss where it comes from and how you can get it into your diet. It's only found in diet by fish, fatty fish, animal products and the like. And later on in the paper they discuss how vitamin D is metabolized and what functions it plays in the body. And that's what we want to know about, how vitamin D may protect against viruses. And this is discussed here, in immunomodulation by vitamin D and autoimmunity. In this part of the paper they discuss how vitamin D works in the body and what functions it may serve to protect against viruses. It's quite difficult, so I will try to explain it a little bit easier. Vitamin D plays an incredible role in protecting your human body using the immune response. It has both anti-inflammatory and immunoregulatory properties and is crucial for the activation of the immune system defenses. Inflammation is the response of the human body to injuries. And immunoregulation is the control of the immune responses to make sure that the lymphocytes and the macrophages interact correctly. And thus, vitamin D is essential for the immune responses, as it also helps immune cells like T cells and macrophages to function correctly in the body and prevent you from getting sick. And what's more, vitamin D deficiency has also been linked to lung infection, which is of course very relevant with the COVID-19 pandemic going on. But of course, this doesn't mean that it necessarily works for COVID-19, and it hasn't been shown in literature so far. And in addition to that, vitamin D supplements may protect against respiratory infections in general. So regardless of the study, vitamin D supplements will be very beneficial to you nonetheless. And the study found that there was a negative correlation between the mean levels of vitamin D and the number of cases of COVID-19 per the population in each country. And as you can see right here, there is a clear correlation between the amount of vitamin D in the blood and the deaths by COVID-19 and the amount of cases of COVID-19 in each country. And while there are of course some outliers, there is a clear linear relationship, so it's worth investigating. And if we look at the table they provided with it, we can clearly see the amount of vitamin D plays an important role in how many people got infected. If we look at countries that stand out, for example like Spain, which had exceptionally low amounts of vitamin D in the blood, their deaths and cases per population are extremely high. And if we look at a country which had high amounts of vitamin D in the blood, for example Sweden, their deaths are extremely low. Or the Czech Republic, which is average but had very low deaths and cases. And if we look to Slovakia, for example, with 81.5 in the blood, only 125 per million people and 0.4 deaths per million people, those are extremely low numbers. And of course there are also some outliers with Portugal, who had exceptionally low amounts of vitamin D in the blood. And while their cases are quite high, their total deaths are quite low. We acknowledge that this cross-sectional analysis has limitations. The number of cases per country is affected by the number of tests performed and also by the different measures taken by each country to prevent the spread of infection, and the difference in the number of infected patients with the population will also mean different levels of exposure for the population. So here they clearly acknowledge that there is a different per country how many people will get infected, and circumstances in each country will be different. Also the amount of tests available will play a vital role in discussing how many people actually got the virus. Mortality might be a better marker of the number of cases in the population, although even that can be influenced by the variations in the approach or the management of the disease. So again, they are noting that the study clearly has limitations, but they are noticing that there is a clearly linear relationship between the two, and even though it isn't as substantiated by all the different variables that are playing a role, there is something to be looked into. In conclusion, we found significant crude relationships between vitamin D levels and the number of COVID-19 cases, and especially the mortality caused by this infection. The most vulnerable group of the population for COVID-19, the aging population, is also the one that has the most deficit of vitamin D levels. And of course, again, the aging population will have significant amount of variables playing into their subjection to the COVID-19 virus, as did the Spanish flu, for example, target the younger demographic, which was remarkable. And the amount of vitamin D in the blood may only be a small part of that, but it's still worth looking into, because any bit helps. Vitamin D has already been shown to protect against acute respiratory infections, and it was shown to be safe. It should be advisable to perform dedicated studies about vitamin D levels in COVID-19 patients with different degrees of disease severity. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from that, is to do anything you can to improve your health and that of your parents and your grandparents, to make sure you can all live through this happily ever after. Because the world can be a dark place right now with the COVID-19 history going on. But anything you can do to make the world a better place is the right choice. And subscribing to this channel and leaving a like would be immensely appreciated. It helps out way more than you know. And if you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much. And I will see you later. Okay, bye.